Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Philly Fast Break podcast. This is the first episode of 2019. Happy New Year to everybody out there. I hope you had a great holiday season. We're going to quickly look back at the season that was, and in regard to our season futures bets that we made all the way back in early September. Of course, on the line with me is our NFL handicapper, Dan Urda. So we're going to quickly talk about what went right and wrong with our predictions back in the fall, and then we'll discuss this week's wild card round playoff matchups. I guess they call it the wild card round. And then I don't have any plays this week. Dan has one play he's going to start, so we'll discuss that and just the games in general. So let's before we do that, give a thanks to our sponsor. That is JoannaPlatt.com. As playoff season rolls around, you might find yourself in need of life and relationship coaching need. So check out Joanna-Platt.com and the Love Always Joe podcast available through the site or on iTunes. So thank you very much to them for sponsoring the site. And now welcome Dan. Thanks for coming on. How'd you feel about Eagles advancing to the playoffs? Big weekend.
First of all, address last week. There was for a personal reason we were unable to tape. My picks went 1-1, but more importantly, best wishes to you and Amber and her family. We did have a death in one of our families, and obviously you can't predict those things, and obviously that takes precedent over a podcast. So just want to wish you and Amber and everybody the best of everything. On a positive note, the Eagles got the perfect scenario where they dominated the Redskins and the Bears won the game. And, dude, it was great. I'm at the point right now where if they lose this weekend, I'm not even going to be that upset because I wrote the season off about 3 weeks ago. I was not even thinking that the playoffs were a possibility. So just the fact that we get a postseason game and we have a chance to – I mean, if Nick Foles does it again, it's one of the best stories in sports history.
Yeah, I can't imagine. They were discussing this on some podcast. I forget which one exactly, but they were saying, what if Nick Foles got 2 Super Bowl MVPs? Does that make him a Hall of Famer? And it's like, well...
No, it's not. I don't even think Eli Manning is a Hall of Famer.
Right, that was the comparison they made. They talked about how Eli won 2 Super Bowls, and despite being bad for most of his career... Yeah, but so Nick Foles has 2013 and then the last 2 years when he would have won Super Bowls. So
Hall of Famer. The debate is if Nick Foles wins 2 Super Bowl MVPs, does his team keep him?
That would be another question. It's a whole other discussion regarding Carson Wentz and the future of the franchise there. Yeah, a lot. But first, they have to play Chicago this weekend.
Yeah, let's get through a couple of games first. But let's remember, in the event that they beat the Chicago Bears this week, which they are 6-point underdogs to do, but in the event that they do that, they then have to go to New Orleans, where they played one of the most embarrassing games of the decade earlier this season. So let's not count our chickens. It's a fun thing. It's fun that they made it this far, but anything else is gravy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It continues to be outrageous and really fun story with Nick Foles and his success in the last couple of years in Philadelphia. So, before we discuss this weekend, though, let's look back at 2018 and our season futures. So, I went 0-2, unfortunately. You went 3-2. Both got screwed by Buffalo under 5.5. Both of my season futures looked great halfway through the season. Buffalo, of course, started out with that 47-3 loss to Baltimore. I think we both thought the Bills were just going to be an absolute train wreck all season, and then they would, be in the running for the first overall pick. They had that surprising win against Minnesota, but then they kind of recorrected, and they were 2-7 through 9 games. Then, of course, Josh Allen became the number 1 fantasy quarterback for about a month. They won 4 of their last 7, and here we are. They won 6 games, and we had under 5.5. I thought that I had that as a lock, Dan. I don't know.
I had it as a lock preseason. We both loved it. I didn't have a lot as a lock preseason because I don't use the word lock until
not preseason, but I mean when they were 2-7, I, I
Forget 2-7. What about the first 2 weeks when Nathan Peterman was setting interception records and looking, and then they went and they got Matt Barkley for a couple games. The fact that this team won 6 games is a miracle, and even Josh Allen is a guy who I thought was a horrible pick. The guy had a very low completion percentage at Wyoming, playing against some of the worst schools in the country. I cannot believe it happened. Now, in fairness, I will say this. If we actually had a podcast last week and we talked things over, I probably would have, in some way, shape, or form, parlayed Buffalo with like Kansas City money line just to get off of the bet. But we did not have that podcast, and I didn't put that in the tweet or anything, so I didn't do it. But I will say Josh Allen is about 150 million times better than I thought he was going to be.
yeah, the talent evaluators coming into the draft didn't factor in the fact that he was one of the best running backs in the draft. I think that was the problem.
It's ridiculous. I don't think his future is ever going to be as a running quarterback. I think he literally is just on a team where no one ever gets open, so it's the only thing he can do.
Yeah, they just have no skill weapons in the offense right now for him to help boost him. Yeah, so that was a disappointing loss for us. It's funny you mentioned parlaying the Chiefs and Bills last week. I actually did something along those lines where I just put minus 500 Rams money line last week and won with that. So I think there was definitely some value in just knowing the teams that had to win and against teams that didn't care, and just eating the juice. There was definitely a couple other games I could have done that, but I just stuck with the Rams last week. But yeah, so you could have. I think you could. Everyone knew the Bills were more motivated to win that game last week, even though they didn't have anything to play for as far as playoffs or anything. They had just been on a roll, and there were a lot of spots like that in Week 17.
You know what's funny is my wife and I went to Atlantic City last weekend, and we went to the sports book for the games on Sunday, and we did one of those parlays on all the teams that had to win. I left the Rams off of it. I had a weird feeling about the Rams. I knew they were probably going to win, but I thought that they weren't as much of a lock as other teams. So what we did is we did a New Orleans. It was New Orleans, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Seattle. Pittsburgh and Seattle both came down to last-minute field goals to win it, and the Colts. So we did that 5-team parlay, and then we also did an Eagles-Bears parlay, money line parlay, like an Eagles playoff parlay, and we hit both of those. But it's funny that you bet the Rams because that was the one that I stayed away from. Just I don't know. I have a weird thing with Nick Mullins. I think he's really good.
Well, he definitely did better than a third stringer that no one knew about coming into the season could have been expected to do in these last 6 games or so. But yeah, good job by you hitting those 2 parlays. Yeah, I saw you posted the Eagles will make the playoffs parlay on social media. That was great hit. So let's get back to 2018 though, and I had a couple. We'll kind of finish out our losses before we go on with the good stuff, and you did have a winning record for your futures. So along with Buffalo under 5.5, I also had Dallas under 8.5. Again, midway through the season, Dallas was 3-5. Everybody was talking about, is Jason Garrett going to make it through the season? When are they going to fire him? And of course, him and the Cowboys win 7 of the last 8. They end up winning 10 games, and that under 8.5 doesn't hit. Yeah, we talked about Dallas a little bit offline. Just crazy turnaround for them in the second half of the season, huh, Dan?
Crazy turnaround, and the question was it all Amari Cooper? Is that what did everything, or was the team just better than we thought from the start? I definitely think having that number 1 receiving option was something they lacked in the preseason, which is what led to you making that bet and me more or less agreeing with it, even though it wasn't one of my plays. But you can't handicap Jay Gruden having a fire sale and selling all of his best players. And honestly, I thought that a first-round pick for him was an overpay, and it turned out not to be. They've looked really good so far, and I would not be surprised if they win this weekend. They're not the same team that they were a couple of months ago, and that's the risk you take with the future bets.
Yep, definitely was a game changer for them getting Cooper. I still don't, it still could be a good trade for Oakland. Cooper is going to have to get paid, so he's going to take up a big chunk of the Cowboys' salary cap going forward, and you get a good cost-effective asset in with a first-round pick, and so it could definitely still work out for Oakland. But yeah, it seems to have worked out in the short term, at least for the Cowboys here. All right, so your other loss was Cleveland under 5.5, and if Hugh Jackson had stayed as the head coach all year, I think you would have won that one, Dan.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was banking on. I've always been a Baker Mayfield fan, and I love seeing the success he's having, so I'll take that L happily because Baker Mayfield was one of my favorite college quarterbacks I've ever watched, and to see him having the success is excellent. And now, honestly, all the teams in that division are scared shitless of Cleveland next year. Pittsburgh's kind of in a disarray right now. Baltimore looks really good, but their quarterback is still a little bit questionable when it comes to throwing the ball. Cleveland, to get them a good coach and a couple more players, they're going to be pretty good, and that's crazy.
Yep. I really hope they get a innovative offensive mind in there, and they don't hire a Mike McCarthy or somebody that.
They seem so interested in McCarthy, and I really don't like it.
Yeah, I'd like to see someone that can really unleash everything Baker has in his arsenal. I don't
Get
think.
them Lincoln Riley. Let Riley come back and coach Baker.
Well, he just signed an extension, unfortunately, for people that were hoping he was going to the NFL. So it looks like he'll be sticking around Oklahoma.
I did not see that news.
Yeah, so that is unfortunate. I think, yeah, like you said, a lot of people were hoping for that reunion, but doesn't look to be in the cards. Three things that were in the cards were 3 wins for you in your other season futures. Oakland under 8 wins. That was an easy win for you. They only won 4 games on the season. Pretty much played out how you thought, huh, Dan?
Yeah, I thought the hiring of John Gruden was a huge mistake. I thought it was going to be a disaster. It kind of was. Now they do have a ton of first-round picks, so they're going to move cities, and they're going to, excuse me, they're going to have a lot of first-round picks, so maybe this team becomes an up-and-coming team. I don't care how much talent they have. If John Gruden's the guy in charge, I still don't trust him, but maybe there's hope for them in the future. But that season win total being 8 was kind of a ridiculous line in the first place. I'm happy I got to take advantage of that. And more importantly, the one lesson I learned is I love what I did preseason with Flacco under interceptions and Sam Bradford under interceptions. This is something I'm going to do for the rest of my betting life. I love that concept. When a veteran quarterback who's kind of on his way out is still the starter, but the team drafts a young up-and-comer to be the backup and eventually the heir apparent, take the under on the interceptions always, because if he even starts to get close to that number, they're going to go to that younger player. Now, both of the quarterbacks did battle injuries all season, and that definitely did come into play. But I definitely feel like both of those quarterbacks were a bad game or two away from getting benched anyway. In fact, I think Bradford actually was healthy when he was benched. So I think that's actually a really cool thing to look at going forward. It might be a good way to make some money with futures bets, looking at these veteran guys who everyone knows is not the future of the team. Because maybe they have a great bounce-back season and they don't reach the interception total on their own. But any kind of struggles, the fans are going to be calling, the coach is going to start worrying about getting losses, and they're going to go to the rookie. And once that starting quarterback plays one game in the season, the bet is a go.
Yeah, I really like this from you as well. Just to rehash what you did exactly, you had Joe Flacco under 14.5 interceptions, and you had Sam Bradford under 8 interceptions. Flacco only threw 6. Bradford played 3 games and threw 4, so kind of lucky, I guess, that they yanked him when he did.
But that was part of the bet.
No, I know that was part of your whole strategy. I'm just saying, if he'd played 7 games, he might have gone over 8. That's how bad he was playing. But yeah, I agree that like you said, they could have a tremendous season and then they just don't throw that many interceptions. But if they are playing bad, there's somebody waiting in the wings and they might just get benched and then they don't end up throwing those picks that way. So yeah, I agree with everything you laid out. I think that's definitely something to look for in future years. That's a good spot to kind of exploit. I also had this wasn't on our podcast, but I had Sam Bradford under 3,800 passing yards, which was absolutely ridiculous. First of all, he'd only had one season ever where he'd even thrown over that amount, and then the same kind of logic you laid out with Josh Rosen being drafted and probably being benched at some point. And he has a degenerative knee issue, and there's no way he can stay healthy for 16 games, like conceivably. So that was one of the more absurd lines. I even tweeted it out on my basketball, like my Twitter is mostly basketball focused, but I actually tweeted out that bet because I thought it was so crazy. And yeah, it paid off. So yeah, but I definitely like what you discussed with under on guys that kind of have a young quarterback, coming up and ready to take their spot. So I'll definitely look at that as well in future seasons. I think that's really good.
Sadly, we might have to wait a year because this quarterback class sucks.
Well, there's always going to be somebody that there's always going to be guys taken because it's a quarterback league, and even if there's just hope, that a lot of times is better than when you have a mediocre starting option. The hope of somebody that you've never seen before always seems to win out, and you just say, well, the best case is this mediocre option, and then it's like mystery box if you go to the secondary guy. So there'll always be those guys that you can. I think that those spots will be there even if there aren't the blue chip prospects and like 4 or 5 guys in the top 12 or whatever at the quarterback's position in the draft.
But any team that needs a quarterback, I would just give a 4th or 5th round pick to San Francisco for Nick Mullins over any of these guys in the draft this year.
There you go. So sounds like Nick Mullins' agent talking.
I don't know why I like this guy so much. I'm a huge fan of like guys coming out of nowhere and showing that they've been underestimated their whole career.
Yep. All right, so that wraps up 2018 with our season futures. Dan went 3-2. I went 0-2. Good job by you. As for this weekend, we have 4 games. They're all pretty good. No real clunkers in there. We got Houston 1-point favorites against the Colts. Dallas 2-point favorites against Seattle. The Ravens are 3-point favorites against the Chargers, and the Bears are 6-point favorites against the Eagles. So the Bears are the only pretty big line. It's not huge, it's 6 points, but everyone kind of seems to be scared of Nick Foles and the Eagles, who are the defending Super Bowl champs, and they've kind of been peaking at the right time the last 3 weeks. So yeah, all 4 games expect to be very competitive. Definitely looking forward to them. I don't have any plays. Personally, I think they're all kind of, they're right where they should be for the most part. Dan, I know you're starting one play this weekend, so why don't you go ahead and introduce that and discuss why you like it?
Yeah, I actually completely agree with you. It's a great weekend of games. I think realistically, any team could win either of these 4 games. The lines are tight. The teams are close in talent. The one thing I do like is I like the Ravens. I like the spot for them, and I like the matchup. The Chargers are traveling to the East Coast to play a 1 o'clock game. Now, Phil Rivers is 2-0 in his career in the playoffs at 1 o'clock games, but I think that's a small enough sample size that I'm okay to throw that away. I just think that the Chargers are going to have a hard time scoring against the Ravens. However, the Ravens' offense is not dynamic enough for me to lay 3 points. So I'm just going to open up a 2-team parlay. The first leg of the parlay is going to be the Ravens minus 150 on the money line. And the second leg we're going to fill in. It could be next week. It could be with a basketball game. It could be with anything. I love these open parlays. I've done these plenty of times on the podcast, and I really like how it gives you the opportunity to leave your options open. I do think the Ravens get the job done at home. We talked about this off air too. I think the Ravens have a chance to go to the Super Bowl. The league became a certain way, and the Ravens are the only team going against it, and they're the only team that are doing what they're doing right now. And teams have been teaching their defenses for the last 2.5 years. All you have to you got to play the pass. This is a quarterback's league. And now the Ravens come with this offense where the quarterback rushes a lot, Gus Edwards rushes a lot, Kenneth Dixon rushes a lot, and defenses just don't know what to do. I really, really like it. And, of course, because Lamar Jackson isn't the greatest thrower in the world, they could lose any game. They could also win any game playing this style, using that run game and defense. I'm going to put them on the money line, and I'm really rooting for this team to go far. I think I think they match up incredible with the Patriots. So if we see a Ravens-Patriots matchup, I'm going to be on the Ravens big. But I really like this team. I really like Lamar Jackson. So let's go Ravens. Give me them on the money line and with an open spot for later.
All right, I'm kind of thinking against you in this one. I was leaning heavy on the Chargers +3. I just think they're a better team. They won 2 more games than Baltimore. Uh, it's in Baltimore only because of the quirk of the division winner playoff system that they've constructed. If the Chargers tied for the best record in the AFC, I just think they're a better team. Um, they have a good run defense. They're top 10 in rushing defensive DVOA. So with Baltimore primarily focused on the ground attack with Lamar Jackson and Gus Edwards and everybody else, I think the Chargers are pretty well equipped to defend that. They have Bosa back. They were playing the first half of the season without him, and their defense has only gotten better since he got back into the swing of things and everything. Um, I don't know. I think this is just you got the more experienced guy with Phil Rivers, and Lamar Jackson's the youngest ever quarterback starting in a playoff game. I don't know. I just think the Chargers are able to pull this one out. I know that for the Ravens they're solid on both sides of the ball. I don't know. I just think that the Chargers are the better team. It wouldn't surprise me if they won. So I kind of like getting the points with 3. I didn't make an official play for the podcast because I think it could go either way, really. But I don't know. It wouldn't be something I would start a parlay with just because it's a real toss up for me.
That's fair. I mean, like I said, all the games are great matchups. I'm so excited to watch this game. It's hands down my favorite on the board, even other than the Eagles game that I'm clearly going to be rooting for the hardest. I just think, and this Phil Rivers could make his legacy this postseason too. Like this, I mean, it's probably not his last chance. He's not really that close to retirement, but the team is really, really good. And the knock on him has always been he's never been in a Super Bowl. What are they when that team goes on the road in weird spots? They play clunkers. They always have. They're not strongly coached. I think their offense is made up of just a couple good skill players, but other than that, they're not that great. I'm just gonna go with Baltimore here. I'm not taking the 3. I'm not laying the 3 points because I do think that they're a good team, but I think they pull away with the game. We'll see. We'll see who's correct here. You sure you don't want to make it a play? You sure you don't want to take the 3 points? Don't let me bait you. I don't want you to reluctantly take a play, especially one that I don't agree with.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay away. Yeah. All right.
So I will give our listeners that one leg of a parlay just because if I didn't, we would both be giving them nothing.
Yeah, gotta give them something.
Gotta give the people what they want.
That's what they're not paying for here. All right, so that'll do it for our wild card round discussion. Great slate of games this weekend, so hopefully everybody enjoys those. Dan is on the Baltimore money line in an open parlay to start things off this playoff season. So enjoy all the action this weekend, guys, and we will talk to you next week.
We'll see you then.